comment by a stakeholder. What is a stakeholder in that study? The resident made reference to the draft report. It is the study. The study is this document that, 90-some pages. Some of that is the appendices in the back. We reached out to property owners and residents in this area. The planner had asked for about 4 to 6 people. I think we gave maybe 7 or 8 people in terms of names, phone numbers, contact them. Are you interested? Would you like to answer a few questions? And those answers, that interview, is included in the report. But that's the indication or the comments or the feelings of a particular property owner or resident, not of the township. One resident talked about how it's difficult currently now with traffic to walk in his neighborhood in this part of the district, and that the traffic is congested. It's true, we'd like to improve walkability, and the funds that are captured can be used to also help control traffic, whether it be widen roads or improve sidewalks or whatever that might be, to improve the traffic signals in another section at Crocker and 16 to improve the traffic flow. Right now, we heard problems presented by a resident. Right now, we have $0 to address that problem. There's no means we have to address that problem.
You have a general fund. I mean, to sit here and say that we have no money is just a false statement.
It's probably fair to say
I
no
mean,
tax
that is
dollars.
not a fair statement at all.
Right.
We get paid. I get paid by dollars. Those dollars just happen to come from cable franchise fees and state revenue sharing, and we get building fees, permit fees, and things. So because of that, we don't have a direct millage, but we are getting revenue from other sources that we do run our general fund.
Correct.
So if we want to put lights in that area, or if we do want to put a sidewalk in there, for example, the bike path, what did we use for the bike path? We used general fund dollars that came from the state and all these other sources to pay 20% of those projects. So we do have money that if this board chooses to use that money for lights or whatever, all we have to do is someone makes a motion and off we go.
Right, that's a fair statement. Let me say this. We currently have no source of revenue for things like sidewalks. When we spend those dollars, we spend from the general fund. In essence, we spend from our rainy day fund. Good point. Who from the county approached the township? That's a great question. The county does, I should say, perform certain functions that are, I don't know that I want to say above us, but for example, we don't have a road department. Our road dollars go to the county, and the county maintains our roads. Township form of government is limited. We don't have a planning department, but the county does. The county has a planning department, and they have a staff of people that look at things on in a short-term sense. They have a group of folks that might work with the Huron-Clinton Metro Park Authority to try to attract a bass tournament to Lake St. Clair Metro Park. That's one function they have. That might be a short-term function. They might have a little longer-range function to think about maybe a 5-year plan. For example, the county has a master plan for a 70-mile bike path that circles basically the county, that travels up to the northern parts of our county, along Metro Parkway, so on and so forth. It's built in stages, but unless someone looks at that master plan, everybody in each city or township does their own thing, and no one looks at a larger scale plan. So the county has an important function, and I, from working with the folks in the planning and economic development group, I think they do a good job. The county's planning and economic development help to work with the state to attract a large investment from one of our the businesses that are in our industrial park along I-94. With that, they were able to secure a $2 million grant to reconstruct the road, supposedly coming with 519 jobs. I forget if it was 55 million in investment, but the point is they perform that function. We simply don't have that staff. One of the things they look at is some connectivity. So is there room for improvement in this particular area, that particular area? One of the things they brought forward, the county did, the Planning and Economic Development Division, was to say that they believe that Harrison Township we have the most boat launches, public launches along Lake St. Clair. We have a lot of lakefront property, and not all of that property has been utilized or developed in a way that maximizes its impact or value or whatnot. They didn't say you must do this. They said, here's some options you have, and did you know that there are these financing authorities that you can establish that can help to pay for some of the improvements. So that's their function. Ultimately, though, whether we choose to go forward or act, it falls to the township. So it isn't as if they said, hey, you know, this wasn't a back alley deal. It's literally the folks from the Planning and Economic Development Department. Someone asked about the tax capture process. Is it immediate or is it delayed? Well, establishment of the DDA doesn't result in tax capture, but it would be facetious for us to say that we'd establish the DDA with no intent to have a tax capture, because that's what we've kind of lauded as one of the primary benefits of the DDA, is a tax capture. Once that DDA meets and establishes a tax capture process, that capture becomes immediate. Now, mind you, the amount of dollars, I think the study shows, in the first year, the capture is something like $5,000. It's not a significant sum of money in the short-term sense. It's a long-term process to hope that over a period of time, the establishment of the DDA, some reinvestment in the district results in some increase in property values. Potentially, if there's zoning ordinances that are friendly to investors for redevelopment, folks are willing to speculate on the property, purchase property. This isn't the sort of thing that's likely to happen in a 3-year period. It's not likely that if this is established that you drive through this area 3 years later not recognize it. 20 years later, yeah, I would say it might look different. But in a short-term sense, there simply isn't enough growth or investment to make any significant changes in the district. So the capture is immediate. Any significant funds are going to take a period of time. Someone asked, can the issue go to a vote of the people, or is it a board decision? The state of Michigan's been very clear. We can't delegate the responsibility that we have. So we no longer have. There was a time in the past when that wasn't clear, but I don't know if it was a attorney's ruling or Supreme Court, but it's been clarified that the local governing body doesn't have the ability to punt, if you will, and say, well, let's ask the people and let them decide. If it's a decision that we're authorized to make, we have to make that decision. We can't ask for a vote of the people. Will this raise taxes? Not in the sense that you'll pay any more taxes than you would have paid otherwise. Someone had indicated, well, the building department cannot handle it. Again, I'd like to point out, I don't see that if this passes 6 months from now, we're going to have 60 new businesses popping up. This is, as Mr. Witt explained, the legislation was written for, say, cities primarily that have areas that may have been industrial at one time, may have been thriving, and over a period of time they've deteriorated. This is one method of trying to encourage reinvestment in a particular area. We don't necessarily match that same thing where we've got something similar. We have something similar in the sense that the development has occurred over a period of time and maybe in an uneven manner. But the establishment of this DDA is not likely to result in permits for 60 new businesses in a 12-month period. It may result in that kind of growth over a 20-year period, but this is not whether I like it or not, this is not the earth-shattering change that some may see as occurring. This is something a lot more gradual. I'm sure other folks have other comments, but I did the best I could to answer the questions as I wrote them down. And if I missed yours, I apologize. I was trying to write and be respectful as well.
The lady from AHEPA,
Yes.
right? You were from AHEPA?
Yes.
You're already capped at 2008 prices. It's either 2008 or 9. We have a special tax bill that goes out to you. So,
I wasn't worried about that. We don't pay taxes,
well,
unfortunately, for everyone here.
well,
I was more worried about my own.
around it gets reimbursed, but you're capped.
I think something that's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you done?
No, I just wanted to mention that it doesn't matter The only way that would uncap is if you sold and it wasn't a.
I just
whatever-
wanna-
However, that structure is there to help.
I just want to catch people before they go out. I know there were some comments about people not being able to, maybe not hearing about something in the past. If anybody wants to be sure that they hear about this, any issues regarding the board, this process will be completely open. It's done in public meetings. There's public comment. There's always time for input. So if anybody after the meeting wants to give me an email address or something, we have a mailing list going around from the workshops we've done in the past. So if anybody wants to add that, please see me after the meeting. We'll get down your information and make sure you receive anything. So.
And one thing to say, we don't know the answers. Once the DDA goes in, this board has really no control over it.
Well, that's not true. We
Well,
can abolish the DDA. This
And we
board has
approve
that
their
authority.
budget every year.
Well,
Right.
let's read that. The abolishment. Termination. Upon completion of its purposes, the authority may be dissolved by the township board. The property and assets of the authority after dissolution and satisfactions of obligations shall revert to the township. So this would go to legalese as to my definition and your definition, which we, for 6 years now, me and you have been arguing over these vague items. When it says upon completion of its purposes, how do you define that? Well, if I'm on a board and I have 8 people and they choose to put a $200,000 renovation at property ABC, and I don't like that as a board member, does that give me the right to just say, okay, I'll get 4 other board members and we dissolve it because their purposes are over? Other people would say their purposes are in perpetuity.
Thank you.
There is no that statement there can have a different meaning to every person in this room.
If you look on the first page of the draft ordinance, there is a purpose, and if you'd like to add a clearer definition
Yeah.
there, we could probably add some additional words, but it says right there what the purpose is.
Well,
So if we, no, it's this draft, and so if you have some input as to how to define it better, we can do that. I appreciate your concern. I wholeheartly do. I'm not
Yeah.
spiking the football or anything. I'm just saying if we need to define that better, we
I've
can.
just been around the block on these
No, it's a good idea.
vague items. And let's read the purpose.
Again, this is a draft. This isn't like, that's what I'm saying. This
Okay.
is
That's all right. Go
this is
ahead.
But
No
it's a
problem.
draft, right? And what's funny is I don't know where Mr. Sunstock got that information he had, but that was really what we had here. I don't know if you're reading our ordinance or if you got that from the planner. So the determination of necessity and purpose. So this is really important. The township board hereby determines that it is necessary for the best interests of the public to create a public body corporation which shall operate to halt property value deterioration, eliminate the causes of that deterioration, increase property tax valuation where possible in the business district of the township, and promote economic growth pursuant to Act 197. Right? So you read that. The only reason you're doing this is because the area that you're going to put a DDA in is so deteriorated to the point where nobody's going to invest in it, nobody's going to live, nobody's, we've seen pictures of, some areas in Detroit. Nobody's living in it. There's empty blocks, there's empty storefronts. You have a downtown area, empty storefronts. That's when you do a DDA, and you do a DDA because nobody in their right mind is going to invest in that area without having some type of tax incentives and some enhancements.
Would you say the Royal Oak is a deteriorated district?
I do not think
They have a DDA.
that, but I will say this: at the time when they established that in I believe it was around 81 or 82. I was in high school.
I know, but if you look at-
wait a minute, Adam. You bring that up. I was in high school at the time, and Royal Oak was a dump. Anybody here knows what Royal Oak looked like. They established a DDA. Look at Royal Oak today. I don't feel, and I don't think anybody in this room would say that driving down Crocker, that you drive down Crocker and then drive down Jefferson either way from Crocker, that is an area that is deteriorated. You have brand new condos in a DDA that doesn't fit the definition. You have Mariners Point, that's certainly not deteriorated. You have several businesses along there have actually remodeled their businesses. I think a couple of the bars I saw, yeah, they've done a nice job remodeling. You had the Sandbar go in a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago. You had the party store that burned down, they rebuilt. I'm not seeing what we're doing here fit into your definition in section 2.
Does Macomb Township have a DDA?
I can't say, I'm not sure.
Off the top of my head.
'Cause I know they've been talking for years about developing a downtown area in Macomb Township.
But what we're talking about here, what we're talking about here,
What the hell is Macomb Township?
Well,
Yeah,
I'm
well,
asking,
hold on.
Well, wait
I'm
a minute.
asking a question because I don't necessarily believe that it has to be a deteriorated area in order for us to look at putting in a DDA.
I think your point being that there are areas that aren't necessarily deteriorated or that are in a growth phase that still establish a DDA for some
Correct.
of the benefits that come with it.
And trying to capture money and keep it in that neighborhood so that neighborhood can get fixed up with their own money rather than sending it off to another area.
but that is exactly the reason why at the state level right now, they've already got rid of TIFAs, right? We've heard TIFA, right? You've heard the word TIFA. DDA is just another subset of a TIFA. You cannot do a TIFA because all of the abuses that occurred in TIFAs in previous years. As a matter of fact, they're thinking about getting rid of this DDA. And it's because of the very fact that cities like Royal Oak, and Royal Oak's a great example, there was no endpoint to their DDA. So that downtown development now, they've raised up all the property values. Royal Oak's a great place to live. It's a great place to go shopping and go to restaurants and go to bars and enjoy a night out. But the city, right, we all hear Royal Oak has trouble in the city, right? Their police, fire, whatever. They're looking at the DDA capturing millions of dollars of money that is not going to the city. So the city, even though that Royal Oak is doing well now, the city receives no benefit from that, right? And that's why right now at the state legislature they're working on possibly allowing if a taxing entity in the past 30 years ago, could have been 30 years ago, 20 years ago, these are long-standing DDAs, if in fact the DDA does not have a bond, that they're going to allow them to possibly opt out. And that is being talked about in the legislature, changing some of these laws. You know, as long as there's no liabilities to the DDA, you know, they can opt out, including the cities themselves.
Is there any other board comment?
One thing that's been mentioned, I think it bears reiterating, is that before this comes to the board for a decision, we will know whether or not the county is going to opt out.
Every taxing entity.
Every taxing entity. And the main advantage to the DDA is, we've all basically agreed that the main advantage to this is its tax incentives. If the county opts out, I don't think there's anybody here on the board that would intend to just let this fall upon the 7.1 mils that gets taxed in the township. So
Correct.
I think we will know in advance of any other motion on this, whether or not the county will be a part of this or not.
Right.
And I guess the second thing I would say is, you know, I appreciate the attendance here this evening, and I will certainly take comments to heart as we further talk about this matter. And we get a different perspective when people take the time to come out and speak what's on their mind. That's the only way that, you know, we will understand that. So I appreciate people coming here this evening, and I will definitely consider it as we talk about this matter further. Thank you.
You know, I would.
Good point, Bill. I mean, that's true. I mean, it is, the public input is valuable, and it you know, the reality is we set up chairs. We don't normally have this many folks that come to a meeting and give us their input. So thank you to
You know,
those who
one other
attended.
thing we should probably point out to the residents, and a lot of the residents have already left, but if we had any sort of underlying huge plan to do something that we're not telling you about, our township attorney would be sitting over there directing us. He's not even here tonight. We don't have anything in the works other than what we've told you. We're just trying to help capture some of the money in your area, to keep it in your area, to help fix your area up. That's all we're trying to do.
And Bill, I'm sorry, Bill made a good point. The point is that we can't consider adopting an ordinance to establish this until 60 days transpire beyond this public hearing. And it's the 60-day period that any taxing authority has the option to opt out. So in the next 60 days, any existing taxing authority has to contact us and give us notice that they wish to opt out of this. At January 30, that 60 days is up. As of that point, now, then and only then could we act to adopt. And Mr. Battanti brought up a good point. If all we're doing is capturing our own tax, it seems kind of foolish. We're truly hoping to see a larger global contribution to this DDA.
So to sort of talk about what you mentioned earlier, Dave, I think we're mixing up two issues here, right? You have to define your terms. DDA is for a deteriorated downtown area that you want to encourage growth and economic stability.
Yeah, I would disagree with that.
Well, that's the definition. That's why they did the law.
Okay.
If you go read the law, that is exactly what the law is. That's why they did it, and that's why they allow it. And quite honestly, I'm against this, and I don't think this fits the definition of that, and that'll be for the state to decide at a future date, and I will assure you I'll be petitioning to the state. But that being said, I get this feeling that we're using this DDA to somehow encourage this waterfront development plan. It's not what a DDA is for. You know, you don't use it to do your waterfront development plan. They're sort of two separate items. And we keep saying we're going to use the DDA to do this waterfront development plan, but nah, we're not going to do eminent domain, but we're not going to take people's property, but the law, we're not really saying, like Mr. Sunstock said, the law does allow the 8 members of the DDA to possibly go down that road if they want. That is part of the law. And that is, we appoint the members to that board, and then those 8 people get money, and then they decide what to do with it.
Well, they propose a budget to the Board of Trustees.
Well, a budget, but we don't have any say in their projects. We don't have any, they say, here's the budget, and we can't say, oh, you can't do project A, B, C, D.
That's exactly what having the purse strings means.
We have no authority to do that. Well, it's just like the library, right? The library is going to bring us a budget. We're going to rubber stamp the budget, and off they go.
No,
That's
the
the way it
library is a
goes.
separate entity. It's a very different
Well,
law
so's-
that establishes those
Well,
two.
then I would go and read a DDA, because the DDA is a separate entity with all of the powers and rights that this board does. And if you think differently,
I do.
then you would be wrong.
Okay.
They have the power to bond and do all sorts of things that this board itself, once we appoint those members, they go and do, just like Economic Development Corporation that I sit on. I have the power on the Economic Development Corporation to bond and do all sorts. I don't have the power to tax people 2 extra mills. I missed that part. But that being said, if you're going to do a DDA, and since we're here talking about the boundaries, right? And we're not going to take anybody's property or because I'm still trying to figure out how the residents or the people that own homes are actually going to benefit from this, because my guess would be that we have eight of our friends who are business people who we're going to appoint, and then they're going to collect all the money and they're going to use it for their businesses, because that's the way these DDAs actually work. Go look at the one on Van Dyke. You always hear these stories about the mismanagement of the DDA money and people always fighting over it. It's just a fact. That's the way it happens. You give 8 people that own property in that area, the strong survive, and they take their meat off the bone first. That's what happens. But that being said, I don't think that all of these homes going north need to be included in this DDA. They shouldn't be included. It's not, those homes, when they say homes can be included in a business district, of course they can, because normally you're looking at a very defined downtown area, and you might have a home intermixed with the businesses, but I have in this DDA probably 50, 60 homes, maybe more, going north on Jefferson. And then I don't know why we're going to put a brand new condo development in a DDA that's, quote, deteriorating. I don't think that those properties actually belong in this DDA, especially not this part that we have going north. I don't see how you can throw that piece in there. You know, maybe you could get by with, you know, your businesses going down Crocker and then coming down Jefferson in that business area, you know, with the marinas. I don't see how you get by with going with those homes to the north.
Well, they're probably going north because they got the administration building they want to get rid of.
Well, the reason you do that is because the businesses really aren't worth that much money. So the only money that you really have is going to be the captured because of the value of the houses.
Because they've
So-
deteriorated?
No,
Businesses aren't worth that much money because they've
well, they're
deteriorated?
not. I mean, the businesses aren't worth much money at all.
Did they used to be worth more?
I mean, if you took the houses out,
Did the businesses used to be worth
if
more?
you-
As a treasurer, did you used to collect more
well, of
tax-wise
course,
from the business?
of course, we've lost about 30% of our value.
It's
Absolutely.
been deteriorating.
But deteriorating, we could say, wait a minute, time out. Okay, if that's your definition, if that's really your definition, board
30% 's
members,
a lot of money.
then you know what, this is what we should do. We should take the whole township, because my house is deteriorated probably about $100,000. And I bet you everybody's house here. So if that's our definition, why don't we go ahead and just DDA the whole township? And then, here's the answer. We'll DDA the whole township. We'll take all of the tax increment financing that we get, and as the treasurer, I'll sign checks back to everybody in the township. If that's your definition.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
But that's your definition. Everybody
No.
is deteriorating.
It's not my definition.
And I still go back to the fact that it's gonna come down next year. Enjoy your DDA, and I think we all know this is gonna be 6-1. We all know it. It happens every time. We're just gonna follow along. We're not gonna look at any of the negatives. What's going on here? But at some point, board members, when the DDA is capturing your money, remember what you did. Because, you might be looking at a volunteer fire department. You might be looking at cutting the ambulance service. I don't know how this is all going to turn out. But one thing's for sure, I'm going to be sitting here at this board table sometime in August, July of next year saying, I don't have money to pay for the fire department. $0.
Are there other board comments? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Well, don't you have to establish, the posting was to establish the,
No, the posting is to
boundaries.
have a public hearing on,
Yeah.
not to
There's no
actually-
action.
There's no action to it.
No action to be taken on
oh, I read that wrong. I thought we were going to be voting on the boundaries. That's why I brought it up.
it. Okay.
It's a public hearing on those issues,
Oh.
not, tonight's purpose is
Well,
solely
then I
to
dumped my
hear the
bucket
vote.
too early.
No problem.
You're still half full.
That's all right.
I got more. I got a whole sheet.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Capro. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, board.
How you doing? Yeah, absolutely. Here, come on, Jen.
I just have one thing. Why are you keep saying deteriorating?